Alright, time for another devlog for Space Strife. I've got a few things to get through, so I'll try not to ramble too much. First up, characters and dialogue. These character portraits I did not make. I bought them from an itch.io user called Captain Skolot or Captain Skeleto. They seem to have both profile names. This dialogue is powered by my own scripting language, which I used in a previous project called Peg. Yeah, so it's fairly bare bones dialogue right now. It's not. I'm not a writer. That'll be pretty clear. So one of the things is characters have abilities as well. And yes, there are more than one character that you can play. I was originally going to have it that characters would be tied to the tank itself, so choosing a character would change the tank, but I decided that could get a little bit more tricky. Not tricky in terms of implementing, but just tricky in terms of like maybe game balancing and all that. But instead, characters have power-ups, which is seen in the bottom right. I've also got it that from a little bit of playtesting, I saw that some people just didn't notice you could upgrade or didn't notice the money because, again, this little bare bones UI at the top isn't super obvious. You've got enough money to buy another tank or upgrade. How do I do that? The button in the top right. I don't know how obvious I should really make it. I don't want it to be too in your face. And I don't want too many of these things here. I'm thinking I might have it that like if the player hasn't used any power-ups in like a first few levels, and maybe then it can check and sort of see that like, okay, you haven't used any power-ups. Do you know they exist? Just in case. But I thought I'll get right to sort of telling the player that like you can upgrade. So yeah. So I should probably show off Alice's power-up. So it temporarily bumps the tanks to the next level as if you had bought them. Which also means that there is a sneaky extra level of tank that you can't buy, because I thought you always need to have it that like there always needs to be some way of going up, otherwise once you get to max level then her power-up would be useless. So yeah. So I'm not going to dwell on this too long. Instead, I'm going to use my sneaky level skip button, which doesn't actually pause the game. But there is some dialogue there. Post-level dialogue. New level has opened up. Let's move on. I already haven't written any description for the moon maze. But yeah, howdy, I'm Bob. Bob is a cowboy. The previous, this SST control guy is a pirate, obviously, which isn't exactly the style I'm going for, but I feel like if we have a cowboy and a pirate and it still kind of works stylistically, it's probably worth pursuing pixel art as the character portraits, because in theory I do have the ability to draw some pixel art. But again, I thought it'd be much quicker to use somebody else's high quality pixel art before investing all that time. Not that, it would be a total waste. But yeah, most of these levels haven't really changed other than the fact that I've added in the abilities, yeah. So split, as sort of the name implies, splits it so that the firing arc of each weapon becomes less accurate, but more projectiles are fired. Pretty much for most of them, it's all that there are now 2 projectiles instead of 1. And for this Gorse tank, I thought doubling the number of projectiles would be potentially too much. So I think it does it by like 80% or 75%, something like that. Which I can show off. I'll add in a bolt tank as well, just so to make it clearer, so you can see the bigger projectiles. If I use split here, you can now see there's like 2 of the bigger projectiles. So yeah, so I also had fun with the, if I wait for this to sort of show the effect closer up, I've got it where the particles themselves, they go along and then they split each of them as well. I thought that was a fun little detail just to add in. Almost lost health there. Anyway, I won't continue on with this because otherwise the level is basically the same. Level skip. Alright, that's what we do here. Does old Caesar know we're back? So there's a third character that we haven't met yet. So this is the first level, where now you've unlocked the previous two characters, so you can choose which one. Should probably make it handle it a little better, because you can in theory have multiple characters in a level, but then this button becomes disabled if you have too many characters selected. I suppose another key thing is, once you've played a level, you can't go back to replay it yet. So that's another thing that's going to be added in soon, actually. So if I show this, got some dialogue about Alice finds using the rocket tank in these complex gravity wells kind of annoying, so... But otherwise this level is basically the same as it was before as well, so we can move on. Did it. We've saved all the planets in this star system, yeah? Alright, so we can go rescue Caesar, right? I'm afraid the long-range probes haven't picked up anything yet. Alright, so now, too many, this UI definitely needs to be changed. Anyway, next level, so now we're up to the next star system. So we can choose who we want to go with, either Alice or Bob. So this is where we lost contact with Caesar, correct. The narrative being that, like, Caesar might be lost. I want to have it that the planet here itself has some, like, smoke coming off it, and some ruined buildings, potentially. Maybe some other bits, some debris around to indicate that there was a battle here, because otherwise this looks very clean and as if nothing's happened. So, but I kind of haven't gotten around to that. What's this? A character has appeared after an effect was triggered. See, it's Caesar. Who would have thought? A character that we've mentioned a few times isn't actually dead. Yes, they've apparently been gone for 2 days, but for Caesar it's only been 13.7 seconds. Which... that number does actually change depending on how long it takes for you to get to that dialogue choice. That dialogue. Because the script gets the current time and then prints it again later. The difference later. So, yes, Caesar's been working on multi-dimensional temporal mechanics. Something sci-fi sounding. And then, yeah, this is still basically the same level as before, but now you have 2 power-ups. So it's as if you've selected both Caesar and Alice to play this level. So we can slow down time here, and then everything except the projectiles and some of the other particle effects all go saturated, or desaturated rather. I'm still trying to figure out what the best time is right now. I think it lasts for 5 seconds and the cooldown is 10 seconds, which is the same for all power-ups. All power-ups can also be stacked together, so you can use split, power-up, and time slow all at the same time. Because I do want to have it that there is a level where you get to use all 3 characters at once, but that will probably be like an endgame level. Yeah. So that's sort of like the quick overview. There are 3 characters, they have different abilities. And now, we've got this dialogue still happening in the background. In the foreground, the game is still playing in the background. We should be able to have a do-over for a specific region and time. In essence, we can repeat a mission. So I'm having an in... a little awkward there. New tank spin. Thanks for playing Space Strife. Alright. So, effectively, what that has unlocked is the ability to replay a level. Now you can go back, replay a level with all the characters, and I want to have it that you can unlock extra things. Still trying to figure out the exact balance of all this, but I want to have it that ideally, if you beat the level and everything's perfect, you get all the unlocks first time. But if you didn't, you took some damage, probably not super likely in the intro level, but it could happen, then you get the extra bonus. So there should be like two bonuses, and like I need to have some UI here to indicate that like you finished the level, which I guess is obvious, but did you get the bonus as well? And there would be a reason to go back and replay. I kept thinking about a scoring system, but I don't know. I mean, even these stats here of just number of shots fired, number of shots hit, so your accuracy, I suppose, and number of enemies destroyed. That was just some stats because I wanted to put something in there to indicate that you've finished the level. I don't think these are super useful or interesting for a player to see, so I probably won't keep those around. But yeah, that's sort of the core of like combination of things that have been done. Overall, I'll go into some details. I'll show what the scripting language looks like, and a little bit how I did that time saturation effect, because that was took a bit of time and was fun to make. Okay, so this is the scripting language. This is the script for the first level, Star System 1 Level 1 .Lysithea. So yeah, it looks for these functions called level start and level end, and will automatically call them if they're present. If not, I think it just starts the level or ends the level immediately. So the first thing it does is define who the left and right actors are of either main character, who will be the first character you selected, and S, who is the SST control, that old pirate guy. And then that's pretty much it. I've just had to implement my own structure within the scripting language itself, but I've got it where if one of the currently selected characters is A, who is Alice, calls the start Alice function. And then if it's Bob, if it's Caesar, which is also where I chose the name, such as ABC. And then the last thing it does is start waves. Start waves is actually after the tank has been spawned in, which is where start level actually triggers the tank to spawn. Start waves actually starts the enemies, so that you can sort of start the level, have the tank there, but still have some dialogue happen, and then the enemies can start coming in, so the enemies aren't appearing whilst you're still reading dialogue. Level update is also a special one called. I probably will update this a little bit more, but it basically is the thing where it checks where has the shown upgrade tutorial flag being set. If it hasn't, and if you have enough money, it then triggers that dialogue, it pauses the game, says some dialogue, and then sets the shown upgrade tutorial flag. I should probably also have it where it checks where if the upgrade window has been used at all. Maybe the player will have already clicked on the upgrade window, in which case they don't need to be shown a tutorial. They've already seen it. Or even better, if they've seen it and then also done an upgrade, then they've definitely used it, so then they don't need a tutorial. So that wouldn't be too hard to add in, just make this condition a little bit longer or something. So if we look at start Alice, so this will be the first time, this will be run at the start of the level when Alice is playing. There's another check for how many times has Alice played this level. If it's 0, that means it's the first time Alice is playing the level. It does all this stuff. Otherwise, it says, we've got them this time. Great. Same with end Alice, where it says, it's the first time that Alice is playing this level. Here's the initial dialogue for the first time they're finishing that level. Otherwise, it just says, we did it. Good job. Kind of pretty bare bones. I've got all this extra stuff here where I want to have it that in the second level, the gas giant is called Thunder's Rest, and Bob's home is called Balreg, which is the moon that we find him on. Not too surprising. But I want to have it that if you replayed the second level first, then Alice will tell you about Thunder's Rest, but that means that you still won't know about Bob's home. So I've got all these sort of checks in here to be like, oh, if you already knew about Thunder's Rest, show this. But if you didn't know about Bob's home, show this, because you might replay the second level as Bob, who will then tell you about Thunder's Rest and Bob's home. So I kind of wanted to have it where there's a way to sort of learn about the characters through replaying levels, and having it that it all kind of hopefully comes together in a natural way, instead of having it where you get told about something as a surprise. The second, you probably get what I mean. If you learn about something in one level, but then learn about it again at the second level, I wanted to, in theory, avoid that. Gives at least another reason to potentially replay a level, is to learn potentially more about the characters. Which also means that the characters need to be interesting and compelling, otherwise who cares? So I will need to get better at writing, that's for sure. And then the rest of the stuff is all placeholdery stuff. I've got a show-off effect here, which is where I was just trying out, firing all the different abilities. If I quickly have a look at the second star system, level 1, which is where we meet Caesar, I've got another different check where I go, is this the first time you're playing, regardless of who's playing? So that we can actually, who Caesar is not available the first time you're playing this level. So then it's got the first time Alice, first time Bob, and then if you're replaying this level, you could be replaying as anyone. And this is where it does the whole thing of like all the extra dialogue. This is where it also does the part where Caesar knows how long it's been since they've appeared we define the appear time, show the effect, all of this, and then we get the diff between then and the appear time and say, well, it's only been diff seconds for me. So yeah, that was, a really simple thing, but it's nice to have that ability to do using a scripting language. And I can just wait and just let things sort of play out a bit before resetting them and all that. Yeah, obviously there's a lot of dialogue here. Probably needs a few rewrites. At the moment I've just got it where it repeats this. I could probably put this in another function if I wanted to. So it's just like show Caesar and just have it that this is always done the same way regardless of whether it's Bob or Alice, but that's a minor thing. Yeah, so far it's been working reasonably well. It's giving me, trying to do all of this has sort of given me a appreciation for how much having any sort of branching narrative can really quickly add up if you're trying to keep things consistent. So yeah, anyway, I think I'll show the saturation time warp effect next. Okay, so this is Unity. I've got it where the actual time warp effect is basically handled by, it's just a plane that renders later than most other things and applies a saturating or desaturating effect to all the things that are in the middle of this hexagon, and leaves everything that's on the outside. So all of that is controlled over here on the right. Just got this one size number that I can increase and decrease, and then if it goes negative, it just inverts. Then I can also control how I could make it more saturated in the middle, or less, or even go into negative saturation and it does weird things. So, which at the moment I've just got it set to 0.1. Also got to check for secondary noise. I was thinking potentially for even lower end devices I might not want, or I'm either using one noise function call or two noise function calls per pixel. And so so far it's actually run pretty well even on some quite low end hardware that I have, so it's probably unnecessary to be worrying about all of that. But if we have a quick look at the shader graph, it's pretty much two parts up here. There's the part up here where it gets the scene color and then saturates it by the input saturation amount, and then combines that with where the inner part of this hex edge subgraph is. And the hex edge subgraph, change this number. This hex edge subgraph is given a size, and then the output, that's kind of, I think it's only giving me the inner. Maybe if this preview allow me to change to viewing something else? Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, the output of that has the output of this hex edge has the inner part, which seems to be this part here, and then the edge part, which is then passed into this, and multiplied by this color gradient to give this effect here. And I wanted the color gradient so that as it gets bigger, the color changes to a more pale or tealy color, and then as it's smaller, it's a darker blue. It's a very subtle effect that probably no one will notice as it's animating in like half a second or something, but it's there. Yeah, which is pretty straightforward. Like this this shader is then just put on a quad and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. Most of the trickiness was getting the rendering order correct so that it actually covered most of the game, but then left certain things. It maybe leaves too many particle effects alone. It would be nice to not leave all the particle effects alone, but it starts to get really tricky because I tried doing this as a post-processing effect, and like that was even harder to sort of selectively apply the post-processing effect. Even using two cameras, it was a whole thing. The hex edge subgraph is a bit more complicated, but it is primarily just made up of, there are 2 polygons, one smaller than the other, and then one minus the smaller one, which becomes the inner part, and then I multiplied the smaller one and the 1 minus 1 to get the edge, which works pretty well. And then the UVs that I pass into the polygon get warbled by and modified by this primary noise, which is then also multiplied by this smaller secondary noise. That's kind of about it. And these noise functions are the same ones I've been using before from that other K-Jitter shader library for subgraphs. And yeah, so it ultimately isn't a super complex effect, but I was pretty happy with how well it works and the fact that I can play around with it in the editor as well to see how well it works. And then the other effects themselves are just particle effects really, that I then rotate to make them a little, well that one already rotates, but like, yeah. So yeah, that's the effects. They were fun to put together because I wanted to make it that the triggering the abilities has a very obvious visual indicator. I probably need like a nice actual cooldown indicator and all of that, and maybe the buttons themselves, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's everything for now. Hoping to have all of this released on a devlog. It should be on itch.io with the new versions 0.4.0. And yeah, all right. Thanks for watching. Hope this was informational, I guess. Anyway, see you in the next one.